The elegant Blackwell estate glowed against the evening sky as catering vans lined up at the service entrance. Raya Fields tightened her simple black ponytail and smoothed down her uniform, trying to calm her nerves. At 34, she had worked countless events like this, but the Blackwell Charity Gala was different. Everyone who was anyone in the city would be there tonight. "First time at the Blackwell place?" asked Marco, the catering manager, as he handed out assignments. Raya nodded. "Is it as fancy as they say?" "Fancier," Marco replied with a tired smile. "Just remember, stay invisible unless someone needs something. These people don't want to know we exist." As they unloaded the van, Raya's name tag caught on a crate and snapped off. She tried to reattach it, but the pin was broken. "Don't worry about it," Marco said, checking his watch. "We're running late anyway. Just take those trays up to the prep area. Follow the service corridor to the kitchen elevator." Raya grabbed 2 heavy trays of appetizers and hurried toward the building. The night air was cool against her face, carrying the scent of expensive perfume from the main entrance, where guests were arriving in limousines and luxury cars. Inside, the service area was a maze of corridors. After several wrong turns, Raya found herself facing a set of double doors that she thought might lead to the kitchen. Balancing the trays carefully, she pushed through with her back. The sudden brightness made her blink. Instead of the kitchen, she had stepped directly into the main ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, casting golden light over marble floors where elegantly dressed guests mingled. Women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos turned to look at her. Soft jazz music played as waiters circulated with champagne. Raya froze. She was standing on the edge of a world she didn't belong in, still holding her trays of unfinished appetizers. "Excuse me," she whispered, trying to back away. But as she turned, the crowd shifted, and she found herself looking directly into a pair of dark, watchful eyes. Adrian Blackwell stood near a marble column, a barely touched champagne flute in his hand. At 39, he wore his wealth like a second skin, an impeccably tailored tuxedo that highlighted his broad shoulders, dark hair with just a touch of silver at the temples, and a composed expression that revealed nothing of his thoughts. What the gathered socialites couldn't see was how much he hated these events. His mother insisted on hosting the annual charity gala, another reminder of the legacy he had inherited but never wanted. Tonight, like every other night in this ballroom, he felt like an actor playing a role. Until he saw her. The woman at the edge of the room seemed different from everyone else. No diamonds, no designer label, just a simple black uniform and a look of genuine alarm on her face. In a room where everyone performed their importance, her honesty was startling. Adrian set down his champagne and moved toward her before he could think better of it. Raya saw him coming, and her heart sank. Of course she would be escorted out by Adrian Blackwell himself. This would be the end of her job, perhaps even her career in high-end catering. "I'm so sorry," she began. "I took a wrong turn. I was looking for—" "The kitchen?" Adrian asked, his voice lower and warmer than she expected. His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. "That would be through those doors over there." But instead of pointing her toward the exit, he surprised her by taking the trays from her hands and setting them on a nearby service station. "You look like you could use a break," he said, grabbing 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter. He offered one to her. Raya shook her head. "I shouldn't. I need to get to work. I'm already late and my manager will—" "What's your name?" Adrian asked, interrupting her nervous explanation. "Raya. Raya Fields." He smiled, and something in his expression softened. "Well, Raya Fields, I'm Adrian Blackwell, and as the host of this rather tedious event, I'm exercising my right to commandeer your services for a few minutes. But I'm not expected to drink on the job, I know." He set one flute down and kept the other for himself. "How about a tour instead? I could use an excuse to escape the social minefield for a while." Before she could protest further, Adrian A.Y. offered his arm. Against her better judgment, Raya found herself taking it. His sleeve felt expensive beneath her fingers, and she was suddenly conscious of her simple uniform, her practical shoes, and her missing name tag. "I really shouldn't be here," she said as he led her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. That makes two of us, Adrian replied with unexpected candor. I've been feeling that way most of my life. The statement caught her off guard. How could Adrian Blackwell, with his perfect life and immense fortune, feel out of place in his own home? As if reading her thoughts, he guided her toward a set of French doors that led to a small balcony garden. The space was surprisingly intimate. Terracotta pots filled with herbs and small roses, a stone bench and twinkling lights strung overhead. The sounds of the gala faded as the doors closed behind them. Much better, Adrian said, loosening his bow tie slightly. Now I can hear myself think. Won't people notice you're missing? Raya asked, still standing stiffly near the door, ready to flee at any moment, eventually. But not before I've had at least 10 minutes of genuine conversation. He sat on the bench and gestured for her to join him. Please? Raya hesitated, but then sat down, keeping a respectful distance. I don't understand why you'd want to talk to me. Adrian looked at her thoughtfully. Because you're the only person here who isn't trying to get something from me. That's because I don't know what you have to give, she said, then immediately clamped her hand over her mouth. I'm sorry, that was rude. But Adrian laughed, a genuine laugh that transformed his face. No, that was honest. And refreshing. He took a sip of his champagne. So Raya Fields, when you're not accidentally crashing charity galas, what do you do? Something about his manner put her at ease. I work for Premier Catering. This is my 3rd year with them. Before that I worked in various restaurants. She paused, wondering why she was telling him this. I'm also taking online classes in library science. I've always loved books. What are you reading now? He asked, seeming genuinely interested. I'm halfway through The Count of Monte Cristo, she replied. I read on the bus to and from work, just a chapter at a time. A story about a man living behind a facade, seeking justice in a world that wronged him. Adrian's eyes showed appreciation. A bit how I feel about these galas, actually. Raya tilted her head. How can someone like you feel wronged by the world? You have everything. Adrian's expression grew more serious. I have what my family built, what I was expected to maintain and grow. Every minute of my day is scheduled, every relationship evaluated for strategic advantage, every decision scrutinized by board members and shareholders. But you could walk away, couldn't you? Not many people have that choice. It's not that simple, he said. There are thousands of people whose livelihoods depend on Blackwell Industries, including, he gestured toward her uniform, the catering staff hired for events like this. Raya hadn't thought of it that way. So you feel trapped by responsibility. Feel trapped by expectations, he corrected. There's a difference. He looked at her curiously. What about you? What responsibilities do you have beyond work? My younger brother, Elliot. He's 25 but has some developmental challenges. He lives in his own apartment now, but I check on him daily, help with his bills. She smiled fondly. He works at the public library shelving books. He loves it there. Is that why you're studying library science? Raya nodded. Partly. We spent a lot of time in libraries growing up. When our parents died, libraries became our safe space. I want to create that for others someday. Adrian was quiet for a moment. I've never met someone who knows exactly why. They do what they do. Inside the ballroom, the music swelled. Through the glass doors, they could see couples beginning to dance. I should really get to work, Raya said, standing up. Adrian stood too, but instead of leading her back to the kitchen, he opened the balcony doors and gestured toward the dance floor. One dance first? I can't dance with you, she protested. Look at everyone in there, they'd all see. Let them, he said, extending his hand. Please. Maybe it was the kindness in his eyes, or the feeling that she was living in a strange dream that would end as soon as reality reasserted itself. Whatever the reason, Raya found herself taking his hand and following him onto the dance floor. Conversations paused as they moved into the center of the room. She felt the weight of curious stares, heard the whispers starting. Everyone's looking, she whispered. Not at you, Adrian said. At me. They're wondering what I'm up to, what advantage I'm seeking, what statement I'm making. His hand was warm and steady on her back as he guided her through the steps. But the truth is, this is the first sincere thing I've done all evening. As they danced, Raya gradually relaxed. Adrian was a good dancer, making it easy to follow his lead. For a few magical minutes, she forgot that she didn't belong there. The spell was broken by a sharp voice cutting through the music. "Raya, what do you think you're doing?" Marco, the catering manager, stood at the edge of the dance floor, his face a mask of horror and disbelief. The music continued, but everyone nearby had turned to stare. Raya felt her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Adrian, pulling away. "I have to go." But before she could leave, a regal-looking older woman appeared beside Marco. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, and diamonds glittered at her throat and ears. Her expression was cold as she looked from Raya to Adrian. "Adrian, darling," she said in a voice that carried despite its softness, "I don't believe you've introduced your friend." "Mother," Adrian acknowledged, with a slight nod. "This is Raya Fields. Raya, my mother, Eleanor Blackwell." Eleanor's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "And how do you know my son, Miss Fields?" Before Raya could answer, Marco stepped forward. "Mrs. Blackwell, I deeply apologize for this situation. Raya is one of our catering staff. She should be working." "In the kitchen, not... He seemed unable to complete the thought. A murmur swept through the nearby guests. Raya felt the floor might open up beneath her. She took a step back. "I never belonged in this room," she said quietly to Adrian. "Thank you for being kind, but I should go." Adrian hesitated, looking from his mother's disapproving face to Raya's embarrassed one. For a moment his carefully maintained composure slipped, revealing something like genuine distress. Then he straightened his shoulders and took Raya's hand, in front of everyone. "You belonged the moment I looked at you," he said, his voice steady and clear enough for those around them to hear. Eleanor's face tightened. "Adrian, remember where you are, who you are." "I know exactly who I am, Mother." He turned to Marco. "Mr. Valenti." "Marco Valenti." "Mr. Valenti, I personally asked Ms. Fields to join me this evening. Any issues with her work schedule are my responsibility, not hers." Marco's mouth opened and closed without sound, clearly caught between deference to a client and the impossibility of what he was hearing. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of a tall, elegant woman in a red designer gown. Her blonde hair was swept into an elaborate updo, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Adrian, darling," she purred, placing a possessive hand on his arm. "Everyone's been asking where you disappeared to. The mayor wants to discuss the downtown revitalization project." She looked at Raya, as if just noticing her. "Who's this?" "Sophia," Adrian acknowledged the newcomer, with noticeably less warmth. "This is Raya Fields. Raya, Sophia Lancaster." Sophia's eyes narrowed as she assessed Raya's uniform. "How interesting. Well, we shouldn't keep the mayor waiting." The pressure was building around them. Eleanor's disapproval, Sophia's barely concealed contempt, Marco's professional panic, and the growing circle of onlookers pretending not to stare. "You should go," Raya said quietly to Adrian. "This is your world, not mine. Thank you for the dance." Before he could respond, she slipped away, hurrying across the ballroom floor toward the service doors where Marco was frantically gesturing for her to follow. As she pushed through the doors into the harsh fluorescent light of the service corridor, she heard Eleanor's voice behind her. "Adrian, what were you thinking? Do you have any idea how this looks?" The doors swung shut, cutting off whatever response he might have given. Marco was livid. "You could have cost us the entire Blackwell account. What got into you?" "I'm sorry," Raya said, fighting back unexpected tears. "It was a mistake. It won't happen again." "You're right about that," Marco said grimly. "I'm sending you home. We'll discuss your future with the company tomorrow." As she gathered her things from the staff area, Raya tried to make sense of what had happened. For a brief, magical moment, she had stepped into another world, a world where Adrian Blackwell had looked at her as if she mattered, where he had chosen her company over all the Sophias in their designer gowns. But fairy tales ended at midnight, and her carriage had definitely turned back into a pumpkin. Outside, as she waited for the bus that would take her back to her small apartment across town, Raya looked up at the brightly lit windows of the Blackwell estate. Somewhere in there, Adrian had returned to his life, to his responsibilities, his expectations, his world of wealth and influence. She touched her hand where he had held it, still feeling the warmth of his fingers. "You belonged the moment I looked at you," he had said. Despite everything, those words followed her home, a treasured souvenir from a night she knew she would never forget, even if Adrian Blackwell had already forgotten her. But Adrian had not forgotten. Standing by the window in his study later that night, watching the last guests depart, he found himself searching for a glimpse of Raya among the catering staff loading vans. "That was quite a scene you caused," his mother said, entering without. Knocking, Adrian didn't turn around. "I'm not in the mood, Mother." "Who is she?" "Really?" Eleanor asked, coming to stand beside him. "There must be more to it." "There isn't," Adrian replied. "We met tonight, we talked, we danced. It's not a conspiracy." Sophia was humiliated. "Sophia will survive." He finally faced his mother. "I'm 39 years old. I've run Blackwell Industries for 10 years, increasing profits every quarter. I've sat through 1,000 dinners, endured 100 charity galas and made all the right business connections. When do I get to choose something for myself?" Eleanor's expression softened slightly. "Is that what this was? A choice?" Adrian thought about Raya's honest eyes, her genuine smile, the way she had talked about her brother and her love of books. "Maybe the beginning of one," his mother sighed. "Just be careful. People will talk." "People always talk," Adrian replied. "For once I'd like to give them something worth talking about." After Eleanor left, Adrian picked up his phone and searched for Premier Catering. He found their website and hesitated only briefly before clicking on the Contact Us link. Tomorrow, he decided, he would find Raya Fields again, and this time he wouldn't let her walk away so easily. The morning after the gala, Raya woke to her phone ringing. Her heart sank when she saw Marco's name on the screen. "Hello?" she answered, bracing herself for the worst. "Raya," Marco's voice sounded strained. "I need you to come to the office today. We need to talk about what happened last night." "Am I fired?" she asked, getting straight to the point. There was a pause. "Just be here at noon." After hanging up, Raya sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the simple uniform she'd hung up the night before. What had she been thinking, dancing with Adrian Blackwell in front of everyone? For a few magical minutes, she'd let herself forget who she was and who he was. Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother Elliot. "Coming over for breakfast? Got new library books?" Raya smiled. No matter what happened with her job, she still had responsibilities, still had a real life to live. An hour later, she was sitting in Elliot's small but tidy apartment, watching him arrange his library books in perfect alphabetical order. "You seem sad," Elliot said, looking up from his sorting. At 25, he had the direct honesty that had always made conversations with him refreshing. "I might lose my job," Raya admitted, "because of the fancy party." "Yes, I did something I shouldn't have." Elliot tilted his head. "Did you break something expensive?" "No, nothing like that." Raya smiled despite herself. "I danced with someone I wasn't supposed to dance with, like Cinderella at the ball." Elliot's face lit up. He loved fairy tales, sort of, except I didn't lose a glass slipper. I just almost lost my job. "Did the prince look for you after you ran away?" Raya's smile faded. "This isn't a fairy tale, Elliot. Rich men like Adrian Blackwell don't go looking for women like me." Elliot seemed unconvinced, but returned to organizing his books. "Mrs. Patterson at the library says good stories always have happy endings if you read to the last page." "I hope you're right," Raya said, checking her watch. "I have to go see my boss now. Wish me luck." She kissed her brother's forehead and headed to the Premier Catering offices, trying to prepare what she would say to Marco. She needed this job. It paid better than restaurant work, and the hours let her check on Elliot regularly. When she arrived, Marco was waiting in his small office, looking uncomfortable. "Sit down, Raya," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. She sat, folded her hands in her lap, and waited. "I got a call this morning," Marco began, "from Adrian Blackwell himself." Raya's head snapped up. "What? Why?" "He wanted to make sure you weren't fired." Marco shook his head in disbelief. "Said it was all his fault and that if we let you go, Blackwell Industries would never use our services again." "He said that?" "He also—" Marco hesitated. "He also asked for your phone number." Raya's heart skipped. "Did you give it to him?" "Of course not. It would be unprofessional." Marco leaned forward. Raya, what really happened last night? And don't tell me nothing. The man danced with you in front of half the city's elite. We just talked, on the balcony. He was kind. She couldn't explain the connection she'd felt, how Adrian had seemed genuinely interested in her life, her dreams. Marco sighed. Well, your job is safe, but I'm putting you on different assignments for a while, no more Blackwell events. I understand. And Raya, whatever you think might be happening with Adrian Blackwell, be careful. People like him live in a different world. As she left the office, Raya felt a mixture of relief and disappointment. Her job was safe, but she would never see Adrian again. It was probably for the best. Last night had been a rare, beautiful mistake. A story she could tell herself on. Long bus rides home after late shifts. When she arrived back at her apartment building, the elderly doorman called out to her. Ms. Fields, there's a package for you. Been sitting here all morning. He handed her a long white box tied with a silver ribbon. There was no card, no indication who had sent it. In her apartment, Raya set the box on her kitchen table and stared at it for several minutes before working up the courage to open it. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a single black evening glove. Elegant, expensive, clearly custom-made. Beneath it was a note card with a handwritten message. You left something behind. Come dance with me again. This time, as the only guest, whoever mattered. Adrian. At the bottom was a phone number. Raya sat down, her legs suddenly weak. How had he found her address? What did this mean? Before she could decide what to do, her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Her hands trembling, she answered. Hello, Raya. It's Adrian Blackwell. His voice was exactly as she remembered. Warm, confident, with that hint of vulnerability that had drawn her in. Did you receive my gift? The glove? Yes, but I don't. Understand, I didn't leave anything at the gala. It's a metaphor, Adrian said, and she could hear the smile in his voice, like Cinderella's slipper, but less obvious. Despite herself, Raya laughed. So you're Prince Charming in this scenario? Hardly. But I am a man who can't stop thinking about the woman he danced with last night. There was a pause. Have dinner with me. Tonight. Adrian, Raya took a deep breath. This can't go anywhere. We're from completely different worlds. Then let's create a new one. Just for an evening. His words resonated with something deep inside her. A longing she'd kept buried beneath practicality and responsibility. One dinner, she found herself saying, but somewhere normal, not a place where I'd need that glove. I know just the spot. I'll pick you up at 7. After they hung up, Raya sat staring at the glove. Was she making another mistake? Probably, but something told her she'd regret it more if she didn't take this chance. At precisely 7 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside her building. Adrian stepped out, dressed not in the tuxedo she'd seen him in, but in simple dark jeans and a grey sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but at least looked casual. He smiled when he saw her. You look beautiful. Raya had spent an hour trying on everything in her closet before settling on a simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned, bought for a cousin's wedding last year. Where are we going? She asked as they drove away from her neighborhood. You said normal, so I'm taking you to my favorite place in the city. It's not fancy, but the food is incredible. Their destination turned out to be a small Italian restaurant, tucked between a laundromat and a hardware store. The owner, an elderly man named Giuseppe, greeted Adrian with a warm hug. My boy, it has been too long. He looked at Raya with twinkling eyes. And who is this lovely signorina? This is Raya, Adrian said. Raya, meet Giuseppe. He's known me since I was a teenager, sneaking away from my boarding school. Giuseppe led them to a quiet table in the back. The usual, Adrian? Perfect. Thank you. When they were alone, Raya looked at Adrian curiously. You've been coming here. That long? Adrian nodded. This was my father's favorite restaurant. Before the business grew so big, before my mother decided we needed to be social fixtures, he'd bring me here on Sundays, just the two of us. A shadow crossed his face. After he died, I kept coming. It's one of the few places where I still feel connected to him. I'm sorry about your father, Raya said softly. He died 10 years ago. Heart attack. Everyone blamed the stress of running the company. Adrian looked down at his water glass. My mother blamed me for not taking more responsibility sooner. That's not fair. Maybe not, but that's Eleanor Blackwell. He took a sip of water. Enough about my family drama. Tell me more about your brother. Throughout the meal, incredible homemade pasta and wine served in simple glasses, they talked. About Elliot and his love of libraries. About Raya's parents who had died in a car accident when she was 23, leaving her to raise her brother. About Adrian's pressure to find a suitable wife from the right social circle. Is that what Sophia is? Suitable, Raya asked, remembering the blonde woman from the Gala. Adrian grimaced. Sophia Lancaster is my mother's choice. Our families have known each other for generations. On paper, we're perfect together. And off paper, she's ambitious, calculating, and has the emotional depth of a credit card statement. He smiled ruefully. That sounds harsh. She's not a bad person. She just wants what she's been raised to want. Status, security, a prestigious marriage. And what do you want? Raya asked quietly. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. I'm still figuring that out. But last night dancing with you, I felt more alive than I have in years. Giuseppe brought dessert, tiramisu and espresso, and refused to let Adrian pay. For your father's son and his beautiful date, it is my pleasure, he insisted. Outside, the night air was cool and clear. Adrian took Raya's hand as they walked back to his car. There's somewhere else I'd like to show you, he said. If you're willing. He drove them to a small park overlooking the city. The area was deserted except for an old-fashioned ice cream cart, where Adrian bought them both cones despite the cool evening. I used to come here to think, he explained as they sat on a bench. When the pressure got too much, when I needed to remember there's a whole city out there beyond board meetings and charity galas. It's beautiful, Raya said, looking at the lights spread out below them. Tomorrow morning my face will be in the society pages, Adrian said suddenly. There will be speculation about who you are, why I danced with you. My mother has probably already called her crisis management team. I'm sorry for causing trouble. Don't. For once I've given them something real to talk about. He turned to face her. Raya, I know this is fast and probably crazy, but I want to see you again. Properly, not hiding in parks or backroom restaurants. What does that mean? She asked, her heart racing. It means I want to take you to dinner at places where I don't have to pretend I'm someone else. I want to bring you to events as my guest, not someone sneaking in through service entrances. I want... His phone rang, interrupting whatever he was about to say. Adrian checked the screen and frowned. I have to take this. It's my assistant. He stood and walked a few steps away. Raya watched him, trying to make sense of her feelings. This man lived in mansions, ran a massive company, moved in social circles she'd only glimpsed through service doors. What could he possibly see in her? Adrian returned, his expression troubled. I'm sorry, but I need to go. There's an emergency at the office. Some issue with our overseas operations. Of course, Raya said, standing quickly. You should go. I'll drive you home first. No need, I can take the bus. The stop is just down the hill. Adrian shook his head. I'm not letting you take the bus at this hour. The drive back to her apartment was quiet. Adrian seemed distracted, checking his phone at red lights. When they arrived, he walked her to the building entrance. I'm sorry about tonight, he said, but I meant what I said. I want to see you again. Even after your mother and Sophia and everyone else tells you. What a mistake you're making, Raya asked. Adrian stepped closer. Especially then. Before she could respond, he leaned down and kissed her, gently at first, then with growing intensity when she didn't pull away. His hands cradled her face as if she were something precious. When they finally broke apart, Raya was breathless. I'll call you tomorrow, Adrian promised. She watched his car drive away, touching her lips where his had been. This was madness, wonderful, terrifying madness. The next morning, Raya woke to her phone buzzing with text messages from co-workers. With a sense of dread, she opened the first one. It was a link to a society blog. The headline read, "Blackwell. Airs mystery woman. Who is the catering girl who stole the dance?" There was a photo of her and Adrian on the dance floor, his hand on her back, their faces close together. The article speculated wildly about who she was and why Adrian Blackwell, one of the city's most eligible bachelors, had chosen to dance with a catering staff member instead of his rumored fiancée Sophia Lancaster. Another text came in, this one from her friend Zoe, who also worked for Premier Catering. "OMG Raya, you're famous. Call me now." Before she could respond, her phone rang. It was Marco again. "Have you seen the news?" he asked without preamble. "Just now. I'm sorry, Marco. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Sorry? Do you know how many calls we've gotten this morning? Everyone wants to book the catering company, where the staff gets to dance with billionaires." He sounded almost manic. "We're fully booked for the next 6 months. So, you're not mad? Mad? I'm giving you a raise. But Raya, be careful. This kind of attention isn't always a good thing." After hanging up, Raya tried to process what was happening. She was about to call Adrian when someone knocked on her apartment door. When she opened it, a delivery man stood there with an enormous bouquet of white roses. "Raya Fields," he asked. "That's me. Sign here, please." The card nestled among the flowers read, "The headlines don't do you justice. Dinner tonight." Raya smiled, burying her face in the roses. Maybe, just maybe, this fairy tale wasn't over. Yet but across town, in the penthouse suite of the Blackwell building, Adrian was facing the full force of his mother's displeasure. "This is a disaster," Eleanor Blackwell said, throwing a newspaper onto his desk. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I danced with a woman I found interesting," Adrian replied, not looking up from his computer. "You publicly humiliated Sophia Lancaster, whose father sits on our board. You were photographed getting cozy with a waitress. The tabloids are having a field day. She's not a waitress, she's a catering professional studying library science." Eleanor's perfectly manicured hand slammed down on his desk. "This isn't a joke, Adrian. The Blackwell name means something in this city. Your father built a legacy that you seem determined to tarnish." Adrian finally looked up. "Father built this company by working hard and treating people with respect, not by worrying about what the society pages would say. Times have changed. Image matters." Eleanor's voice softened slightly. "Darling, I know you're under pressure. If you need companionship, there are discreet ways to arrange these things, but publicly? With someone from that background?" Adrian stood, his patience gone. "Don't talk about her like that. Raya is intelligent, kind, and honest, qualities that seem to be in short supply in our social circle. This infatuation will pass," Eleanor said dismissively. "Just try not to do any more damage while it runs its course." She walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Sophia is expecting you at the mayor's fundraiser tomorrow night. I told her you'd pick her up at 7. After she left, Adrian sat back down, rubbing his temples. His phone buzzed with a text from Raya. "Got your flowers, they're beautiful. Yes to dinner tonight." His stress immediately lightened. He texted back, "Can't wait, 7 p.m. But as he set his phone down, his assistant knocked and entered with a worried expression. "Mr. Blackwell, the board has called an emergency meeting for this afternoon. They're concerned about the publicity." Adrian sighed. The battle for control of his own life was just beginning. But for the first time in years, he had someone worth fighting for. That evening, when he arrived at Raya's apartment, he was 45 minutes late. "I'm so sorry," he said when she opened the door. The board meeting ran long. "Is everything okay?" she asked, noticing the tension in his face. Adrian managed to smile. "Nothing for you to worry about. You look beautiful." Raya was wearing a simple red dress she'd borrowed from Zoe. It wasn't designer, but it fit her well and brought out the warmth in her olive skin. "Where are we going tonight?" she asked as they walked to his car. "I thought we'd try something different," Adrian said. "How do you feel about cooking dinner together at my place? I have a feeling we both could use a night away from prying eyes." Raya hesitated. "Your place as in the Blackwell estate?" "No, my mother lives there. I have my own apartment downtown." He opened the car door for her. It's just a place to sleep most nights, but it has a decent kitchen that never gets used. Adrian's apartment turned out to be a stunning penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was beautifully designed but felt impersonal, like a high-end hotel suite. "It doesn't look lived in," Raya observed, as Adrian showed her around. "It isn't really," he admitted. "I'm usually at the office or at functions or traveling." He led her to the kitchen, where ingredients were already laid out. "I had my assistant stock the fridge. I hope Italian is okay." Together, they made pasta from scratch, a messy, laughter-filled process that left flour on Raya's cheek and tomato sauce on Adrian's expensive shirt. They ate at the kitchen island, drinking wine and talking as if they'd known each other for years instead of days. "Tell me about the board meeting," Raya said as they cleared the dishes. "Was it about us?" Adrian hesitated. "Partly. Some board members are concerned about my recent behavior." "You mean me?" "The old guard is set in their ways. They think a Blackwell should only be seen with certain types of people, attend certain functions, marry into certain families." He took her hand. "I don't care what they think." "Maybe you should," Raya said softly. "This is your life, your family business. And that's exactly why I get to decide who's part of it." Adrian pulled her closer. "I want you to come to the mayor's fundraiser with me tomorrow night." Raya's eyes widened. "As your date? In public?" "Yes. But the articles, the gossip, won't that make things worse for you?" "Probably," he admitted with a half-smile. "But I'm tired of living my life according to everyone else's expectations." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Say yes." Looking into his eyes, Raya knew she should be practical, should protect herself from the storm that would surely come. But when Adrian looked at her like that, "Yes," she said. "But I have nothing to wear to a mayor's fundraiser." Adrian smiled. "I think we can solve that problem." The next afternoon, Raya found herself in an exclusive boutique where the sales staff treated her like royalty. Once they learned she was shopping on Mr. Blackwell's account, she chose the simplest gown she could find, an elegant midnight blue dress that made her feel beautiful without seeming like she was trying too hard. As she was leaving the boutique, her phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. "Hello? Is this Raya Fields?" a woman's crisp voice asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Sophia Lancaster. I think it's time we had a chat." Raya's blood ran cold. "About what?" "About Adrian, of course. And about how a clever girl like you might best play the cards she's been dealt." There was a pause. "Shall we say 4 o'clock at the Tea Rose Cafe? I'll be the one in white." Before Raya could respond, Sophia had hung up. Raya stood on the sidewalk, her new dress in a garment bag over her arm, wondering what to do. Should she tell Adrian, go to the meeting, ignore it entirely? In the end, curiosity won out. At precisely 4 o'clock, Raya walked into the Tea Rose Cafe, an upscale establishment where the cheapest item on the menu probably cost more than she made in an hour. Sophia sat at a corner table, as promised, in a white suit that probably cost more than Raya's monthly rent. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, emphasizing her perfect bone structure. "Raya," she said, as Raya approached, "thank you for coming. Please, sit down." Raya sat across from her, back straight, chin up. "What did you want to talk about?" Sophia smiled, a practiced curve of glossy lips. "I'll get straight to the point. Adrian is going through a phase. He's under tremendous pressure, and he's rebelling in the most predictable way possible, by slumming it with someone his mother would disapprove of." She sipped her tea delicately. "No offense." "Plenty taken," Raya replied, her voice steady despite the hurt Sophia's words caused. "Adrian and I have an understanding. Our families have been planning our our marriage for years. It's advantageous for everyone involved. Except Adrian, from what he tells me." Sophia's smile tightened. "What Adrian thinks he wants and what he needs are different things. He needs someone who understands his world, his responsibilities, someone who won't embarrass him at board functions or business dinners. Someone like you." "Precisely." Sophia set down her teacup. "Now here's my proposal. Walk away now before things get messy. No scene, no drama. Just disappear from Adrian's life." She opened her designer handbag and slid an envelope across the table. This should ease the transition. Raya didn't touch the envelope. "You're trying to buy me off? I'm offering you an opportunity. That check will more than cover your brother's care for a year. Yes, I know about Elliot. I make it my business to know these things." Anger flared in Raya's chest. "You leave my brother out of this. Think about it, Raya. You and Adrian, it's a fantasy. Eventually, he'll remember who he is and where he belongs. Why not spare yourself the heartbreak and walk away with something to show for it?" Raya stood up, leaving the envelope untouched. "Adrian isn't a business deal or a merger. He's a person. If he chooses you, it should be because he loves you, not because it's convenient for your families." "Love?" Sophia laughed. "How charmingly naive. This isn't about love. It's about legacy, about responsibility." "Then I feel sorry for you," Raya said, "and I'll let Adrian make his own choices, thank you very much." As she walked out of the cafe, Raya's hands were shaking. Sophia's words had struck a nerve. What if she was right? What if Adrian was just going through a phase, rebelling against expectations before eventually returning to the path laid out for him? Lost in thought, she almost walked straight into the person waiting outside. "Elliot, what are you doing here?" Her brother smiled nervously. "You said you were coming to this street. I was at the library around the corner." He looked past her into the cafe. "Was that lady mean to you? You look upset." "No, it's fine," Raya lied. "Just a misunderstanding." Elliot didn't seem convinced. "Mrs. Patterson says when people misunderstand each other, they should talk more, not less." Raya hugged him. "Mrs. Patterson is very wise." As they walked together toward the bus stop, Raya checked her phone. There was a text from Adrian. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Car will pick you up at 7. Despite Sophia's warnings, despite all the reasons this couldn't work, Raya found herself smiling. Tonight she would step fully into Adrian's world, not as a catering staff member sneaking through the wrong door, but as his chosen guest. Whatever storm came after, they would face it together. At exactly 7 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up in front of Raya's apartment building. The driver, a professional-looking man in a suit, opened the door for her. "Good evening, Ms. Fields. Mr. Blackwell asked me to bring you to the Plaza Hotel." Raya smoothed down her new midnight blue gown, fighting the butterflies in her stomach. After her confrontation with Sophia, doubts had crept in. Was she making a mistake by stepping into Adrian's world? Would she just embarrass him and herself? When the car pulled up to the Plaza Hotel, photographers lined the entrance. Raya's heart pounded. She hadn't expected this level of attention. "Ms. Fields," the driver said, turning to her, "Mr. Blackwell said to tell you that he'll meet you inside at the main entrance. He thought you might prefer not to walk the red carpet alone." Raya nodded gratefully and followed the driver through a side entrance. Inside, the hotel's elegant lobby was filled with well-dressed people heading toward the grand ballroom. She stood uncertainly near a marble column, feeling out of place despite her beautiful dress. "Raya." She turned to see Adrian walking toward her, handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His face lit up when he saw her. "You look absolutely beautiful," he said, taking her hands and kissing her cheek. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Everyone here will know I don't belong." "You belong with me," Adrian said simply. He offered his arm. "Ready?" Taking a deep breath, Raya nodded and placed her hand on his arm. Together, they walked into the ballroom where the mayor's fundraiser was in full swing. The space was stunning. Crystal, chandeliers, elaborate flower arrangements, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. Heads turned as they entered. Raya could hear the whispers, feel the stares. She kept her chin up, focusing on Adrian's solid presence beside her. "Adrian, darling." The mayor's wife approached, her smile curious as her gaze moved from Adrian to Raya. "We're so glad you could. So make it. And you've brought a guest." "Mrs. Reynolds, this is Raya Fields," Adrian said proudly. "Raya Dorothy Reynolds, our mayor's better half." "Lovely to meet you, dear," Mrs. Reynolds said, her eyes assessing Raya carefully. "I don't believe we've met before. Are you new to the city?" "I've lived here all my life," Raya replied honestly. But this is my first time at an event like this, Mrs. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. How fascinating, and what do you do, Miss Fields? Before Raya could respond, Adrian smoothly interjected, Raya works in hospitality management and is studying library science. She's brilliant with literature. She introduced me to perspectives on the Count of Monte Cristo I'd never considered. Mrs. Reynolds blinked, clearly not expecting that answer. How interesting. Well, enjoy the evening. The mayor will want to speak with you later, Adrian. As she walked away, Raya squeezed Adrian's arm gratefully. Thank you for that. For what? Telling the truth? He smiled down at her. Come on, let's get some champagne. I have a feeling we're both going to need it. Throughout the evening, Adrian introduced Raya to countless people, business associates, politicians, socialites. Some were warmly polite, others barely concealed their curiosity or judgment. Adrian remained by her side, his hand often resting protectively on her back. Adrian! A distinguished older man approached them. Just the man I wanted to see. That proposal for the waterfront development. Brilliant work. Thank you, Senator Wilson. Adrian turned to Raya. Raya, this is Senator James Wilson. Senator, this is Raya Fields. The senator shook her hand. Pleasure to meet you, young lady. I've been reading about you in the papers. His eyes twinkled. Anyone who can get this workaholic to actually attend social functions instead of sneaking out early has my admiration. Raya laughed, relaxing slightly. He did try to escape from the charity gala where we met. Caught in the act, were you? The senator chuckled. Good for you, my dear. He turned back to Adrian. Now, about that development project. As they fell into business discussion, Raya excused herself to find the ladies' room. As she made her way across the ballroom, she felt a chill. Eleanor Blackwell was standing with a group of elegantly dressed women, watching her with narrow eyes. In the bathroom, Raya took a moment to steady herself. When she emerged from the stall, Eleanor was there, applying lipstick in the mirror. Ms. Fields, Eleanor said, their eyes meeting in the reflection. I was hoping for a moment alone with you. Raya straightened her shoulders. Mrs. Blackwell, you've caused quite a stir in our social circle. Eleanor's voice was cool, but not overtly hostile. My son seems quite taken with you. I care about Adrian very much, Raya said honestly. I'm sure you do. Eleanor turned to face her directly. He's a charming, handsome billionaire. What's not to care about? Raya felt her cheeks flush. That's not fair. I didn't know who he was when we met. Perhaps not, Eleanor studied her. But you know now, and you must realize this. Dalliance can't last. Adrian has responsibilities, expectations, a future planned since childhood. With Sophia Lancaster, Raya said quietly. Yes. The Lancasters and the Blackwells have been allies for generations. Their merger with our shipping division saved both companies during the recession. And now you want a merger of families to seal the deal? Eleanor's eyebrows rose slightly. You're smarter than you look. Yes, that's exactly what I want, what both families want, what the board wants, but what does Adrian want? Adrian doesn't always know what's best for him. Eleanor checked her appearance one last time. He's going through a rebellious phase, testing boundaries. I'm not a phase, Raya said firmly. We'll see. Eleanor headed for the door, then paused. You seem like a nice girl, Miss Fields, I'll give you that. But this world, Adrian's world, will chew you up and spit you out. For your own sake, walk away while you still can. After she left, Raya stood for a long moment, gathering her composure. When she returned to the ballroom, she spotted Adrian, looking for her, concern on his face. There you are, he said with relief. I was getting worried. I ran into your mother, Raya admitted. Adrian's expression darkened. What did she say to you? Nothing I didn't expect. Raya managed a smile. It's okay. I'm okay. Before Adrian could respond, there was a commotion at the entrance. Sophia Lancaster had arrived, stunning in a red gown that seemed designed to draw every eye in the room. She swept in like a queen, greeting people confidently, before her gaze locked on Adrian and Raya. With determined grace, she walked directly toward them. Adrian, she said, her voice carrying just enough to attract attention from nearby guests. I waited for you this evening. Imagine my surprise when your mother called to say you'd decided to bring alternate company. Adrian's jaw tightened. Sophia, I never agreed to attend with you. A misunderstanding, then. Her smile was brittle as she turned to Raya. We meet again. That's a lovely dress. Last season's design, if I'm not mistaken, but it suits you. Raya felt the sting but kept her expression neutral. Thank you. Your dress is beautiful too. Sophia turned back to Adrian. The mayor is asking. For you? Something about the speech you're supposed to give? Adrian looked torn. Raya, I need to go, she said. I'll be fine. After he reluctantly walked away, Sophia's pleasant mask slipped. I see you didn't take my offer. No, Raya replied simply. Pity. That was the easy way out. Sophia sipped her champagne. You know, I've known Adrian since we were children. We attended the same private schools, the same summer camps, the same universities. I know everything about him, his favorite foods, his childhood fears, his family history. And yet you don't seem to know what he wants, Raya observed. Sophia's eyes flashed. What he wants and what's best for him are different things. Adrian carries the Blackwell legacy. Do you have any idea what that means? The responsibility, the expectations. You sound just like his mother. I'll take that as a compliment. Sophia leaned closer. You think this is a fairy tale, the billionaire and the serving girl. Wake up, Raya. This isn't a movie. In real life, people marry within their class. They honor family commitments. Maybe that's why Adrian wants something different, Raya suggested quietly. Maybe he's tired of having his life planned out for him. Sophia laughed. You're a novelty, a brief distraction. When the novelty wears off, he'll come back to where he belongs. She glanced toward the stage where Adrian was talking with the mayor. Enjoy it while it lasts. She walked away, leaving Raya feeling shaken but determined not to show it. She made her way to a quiet corner, needing a moment alone. From her position, she could see Adrian on stage now, delivering what appeared to be an impromptu speech. He spoke confidently about the mayor's initiatives, about the importance of community investment. The crowd was captivated. This was his world, Raya realized. He belonged here, among the powerful, the influential, the wealthy. Could she ever truly fit into this life? Or was Sophia right? Adrian found her shortly after his speech, his face lighting up when he saw her. There you are, he said. I'm sorry about that. The mayor sprung the speech on me at the last minute. You were amazing, Raya said honestly. Everyone was hanging. On your every word. Years of practice, he said dismissively. Are you okay? You look troubled. Just thinking. Raya hesitated. Adrian, what are we doing, really? His brow furrowed. What do you mean? This. She gestured around them. Us. Tonight, I've met senators and business leaders and socialites who've known you your entire life. I've been interrogated by your mother and insulted by your whatever Sophia is to you, and I can't help wondering if they're right. Right about what? That I don't belong here. That this can't last. Adrian took her hands in his. Raya, listen to me. These people, this world, it's all smoke and mirrors. Most of these friendships are strategic alliances. Most of these conversations are negotiations. Nothing is genuine. His eyes held hers intently. Except how I feel about you. And how is that? Raya asked softly. Before Adrian could answer, his phone rang. He checked it and frowned. It's my assistant. I need to take this. It's about the Tokyo deal. Go ahead, Raya said. As Adrian stepped away to take the call, Raya watched the glittering crowd. Everyone seemed to know everyone else, to belong to this exclusive club that she had somehow crashed. Sophia's words echoed in her mind. You're a novelty, a brief distraction. What if she was right? Excuse me, Ms. Fields. Raya turned to see a young woman with a press badge. Yes? Jessica Lane, City Society magazine. Could I ask you a few questions about your relationship with Adrian Blackwell? I'm sorry, I don't think... How did you two meet? Is it true you were working as a server at the Blackwell charity gala? How long have you been dating? Are the rumors about an engagement true? Raya stepped back, alarmed. There's no engagement. I really can't comment on… Raya! Adrian was suddenly beside her, his face tight with anger. Jessica, this is a private event, not a press opportunity. The reporter smiled apologetically. Just doing my job, Mr. Blackwell. Your relationship… It's the talk of the town. Then the town needs better things to talk about, Adrian said firmly. Excuse us. He led Raya away, his hand protective on her back. I'm sorry about that. The press can be vultures. It's all right, Raya said, though she felt shaken. But maybe we should leave. I feel like I'm in a fishbowl here. Adrian nodded. I think that's a good idea. As they made their way toward the exit, Eleanor intercepted them. Leaving so soon? She asked, her expression disapproving. Adrian, the mayor was hoping to discuss the waterfront project further. Another time, Adrian said. Raya and I are calling it a night. Eleanor's gaze moved to Raya, then back to her son. The board meeting tomorrow has been moved to 8 a.m. Don't be late. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. And be prepared. Alexander has concerns he wants to address. Alexander always has concerns, Adrian replied dismissively. This time it's serious. It concerns your recent behavior. Eleanor's eyes flicked meaningfully toward Raya. Adrian's expression hardened. Good night, Mother. In the car, Raya was quiet, lost in thought. Adrian reached over and took her hand. I'm sorry about tonight, he said. I didn't think there would be press inside. It's not just that, Raya admitted. It's everything. Your mother, Sophia, that whole world in there. I feel like I've stepped into someone else's life. I know it's overwhelming. It's more than that. Raya turned to face him. Adrian, what happens next? Where is this going? Because from where I stand, it seems like everyone in your life is against us. Adrian was silent for a moment. Not everyone, just the ones who think they can control me. He squeezed her hand. Raya, I've spent my entire life doing what was expected of me, taking over the company when my father died, attending the right schools, making the right connections, dating the right women. Like Sophia. Yes, like Sophia. He sighed. When I met you at the gala, it was the first genuine connection I'd felt in, I can't even remember how long. You saw me, not the Blackwell heir, not the CEO, just me. I still see you, Raya said softly. And that's why I can't walk away from this. From you. He lifted her hand to his lips. I know it won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. The car pulled up to Raya's apartment building. Adrian walked her to the door, but she hesitated before going inside. The board meeting tomorrow, she said. Your mother made it sound serious. It's nothing I can't handle. Is it about me, about us? Adrian's slight hesitation told her everything. Don't worry about it. But I am worried. I don't want to cause problems for you. Raya, Adrian, cupped her face in his hands. You are the solution, not the problem. The rest is just noise. He kissed her, a gentle, lingering kiss that made her heart race. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. I have an idea, he said. After the board meeting tomorrow, let's get away for the weekend. Just you and me, no press, no family, no expectations. What do you say, Katam? Where would we go? I have a cabin in the mountains. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. We could hike, read books by the fire, just be. The idea was tempting, a chance to get to know each other away from all the complications of their different worlds. Okay, Raya said with a smile. That sounds perfect. I'll pick you up tomorrow afternoon. Adrian kissed her once more before reluctantly pulling away. Get some rest. Tomorrow is the beginning of something new for both of us. As he drove away, Raya felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. A weekend away with Adrian sounded wonderful. But Eleanor's warning about the board meeting nagged at her. What if they forced Adrian to choose between her and his family legacy? The next morning, Raya woke to her phone ringing. It was Elliot. Raya! Her brother's voice was excited. You're in the newspaper. There's a picture of you in a pretty blue. A dress with that man from the party. Raya sat up quickly. What newspaper, Elliot? The morning one Mrs. Patterson showed me. She said you look like a princess. After reassuring her brother that yes, she had indeed worn a pretty dress, and no, she wasn't actually a princess, Raya hung up and quickly searched online for news about the fundraiser. Her heart sank. There were multiple articles about her and Adrian, all speculating about their relationship. One particularly nasty piece was titled, "Blackwell Heirs Charity Case. Who is the server who snagged a billionaire?" There were photos too, her and Adrian arriving at the fundraiser, standing close together, him protectively leading her away from the reporter. In one, they were laughing together, looking happier than anyone else in the frame. Raya's phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Don't read the papers. None of it matters. Can't wait to see you this afternoon. Pack for cool weather," his message made her smile despite her worries. She spent the morning packing for their weekend away, trying not to think about the board meeting Adrian was currently attending. Around noon, her phone rang again. "It was Marco, Raya," he said, his voice unusually serious. "I think you should come into the office now." "Why? What's happened?" "It's better if we talk in person. How soon can you get here?" Something in his tone made her stomach knot. "I can be there in 30 minutes. When she arrived at the Premier catering offices, Marco was waiting with a grim expression. He led her into his office and closed the door. "We received a call this morning," he said without preamble. "From Blackwell Industries." Raya's heart raced. "From Adrian?" "No. From their legal department." Marco pushed a letter across his desk. "They're terminating all contracts with Premier Catering effective immediately." Raya stared at the letter in disbelief. But why? They cited unprofessional conduct, but the lawyer made it clear. "It's because of you and Adrian Blackwell." Marco looked both angry and concerned. "Raya, what's going on? First he saves your job, then his company fires our entire business?" "I don't understand," Raya said, her mind spinning. "Adrian wouldn't do this." "Well, someone at Blackwell Industries did," Marco replied. "And we're not the only ones. 3 other vendors who work regularly with the Blackwells received similar notices this morning." There must be some mistake. Raya pulled out her phone to call Adrian, but it went straight to voicemail. "I need to speak with him." "Raya." Marco's voice softened. "Whatever is happening between you and Adrian Blackwell, be careful. This is getting serious. People's livelihoods are at stake now." Raya left the office in a daze. This couldn't be Adrian's doing. But if not him, then who? His mother? The board? Was this a way to pressure him into ending their relationship? She tried calling Adrian again as she walked to the bus stop. Still no answer. Next she tried texting. "Need to talk urgently. Please call me." By the time she reached her apartment, there was still no word from Adrian. Their plans to leave for the mountains were in just a few hours, but now she wondered if that would still happen. Raya was packing the last of her things when there was a knock at her door. Her heart leapt. Adrian must have come directly to her place, but when she opened the door, it wasn't Adrian standing there. It was a thin, sharp-faced man in an expensive suit. "Ms. Fields?" he asked, though his tone suggested he knew exactly who she was. "Yes, Alexander Blackwell." He offered his hand. "Adrian's brother. May I come in? We need to talk." Raya had heard Adrian mention his older brother, but rarely in positive terms. Still, if he knew where Adrian was. "Please, come in." She stepped aside, suddenly self-conscious about her modest apartment. Alexander entered, his calculating gaze taking in every detail of her home. Unlike Adrian, who radiated warmth, Alexander seemed cold, assessing. "My brother isn't answering." "His phone," Alexander said without preamble. "I assume you haven't heard from him either." "No, I haven't," Raya replied cautiously. "We were supposed to meet this afternoon." The board meeting this morning was difficult. Alexander picked up a framed photo of Raya and Elliot, studying it briefly before setting it down. Adrian didn't take the decisions well. "What decisions?" Raya asked, a sense of dread building. Alexander turned to face her. "Miss Fields, I'll be blunt. The board has concerns about Adrian's recent behavior, his judgment, his priorities. You mean me? Among other things." Alexander straightened his already perfect tie. "The board has temporarily relieved Adrian of..." His CEO duties, Raya gasped. What? They can't do that. They can and they have. Alexander's tone was matter-of-fact. When my father founded this company, he put safeguards in place. If the CEO's judgment is ever compromised, the board can vote to temporarily replace him. And they think dating me compromises Adrian's judgment. Dating you, antagonizing key allies like the Lancasters, alienating our mother, making scenes at public events, prioritizing his personal life over company business. Alexander ticked off the points on his fingers. It adds up to a pattern of concerning behavior. So what happens now? I've been named interim CEO while Adrian takes some time to reassess his priorities. Alexander's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. That's actually why I'm here. I don't understand. It's quite simple, Ms. Fields. If Adrian wants to return as CEO, he needs to demonstrate that his judgment has improved, that his priorities are properly aligned with the company's best interests. The implication was clear. You want him to break up with me? Alexander shrugged. I don't personally care who my brother dates, but the board does. The shareholders do, our business partners do. And the cancelled contracts with Premier Catering, was that your doing too? Let's call it a message. Alexander checked his watch. Adrian is currently at the estate, meeting with our family attorney to review his options. They're limited, I'm afraid. I need to see him, Raya said firmly. That would be unwise. Alexander reached into his jacket and removed an envelope. I've been authorized to offer you this, in exchange for stepping away from my brother's life quietly and permanently. Raya didn't take the envelope. I'm not interested. You should at least look at the amount before declining. Alexander set the envelope on her coffee table. Think about what you could do with that money. Help your brother, finish your education, start fresh somewhere new. Where is Adrian? Raya demanded. Alexander sighed. He'll contact you when he's ready, if he's ready. He moved toward the door. Consider the offer, Ms. Fields. It's more generous than you deserve. After he left, Raya sank onto her couch, trying to process what had just happened. The board had stripped Adrian of his position. His brother had tried to buy her off, and Adrian wasn't answering his phone. Had he already decided? Was he even now accepting the board's terms, choosing his company over her? Raya looked at the envelope on her coffee table. Part of her wanted to rip it up without looking inside, but a smaller, more practical part wondered what Alexander considered generous. Slowly, she picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was a check with so many zeros that her vision blurred. It was more money than she would make in 20 years of catering work. Attached was a simple document stating that in exchange for the funds, she agreed to end all contact with Adrian Blackwell and not to speak to the press about their relationship. Raya's hands shook as she set the check down. This was what they thought she was after. Money. Did they really believe she could be bought so easily? But the doubt crept in. What if Adrian had already accepted the board's decision? What if he was, at this very moment, reconciling with Sophia Lancaster, returning to the life that had been planned for him? Her phone rang, startling her. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello, she answered cautiously. Ms. Fields, this is James, Mr. Blackwell's driver. I've been instructed to pick you up immediately. Raya's heart raced. Bye, Adrian? Yes, ma'am, I can be at your building in 15 minutes. I'll be ready. Raya quickly finished packing, her mind racing with questions. Was Adrian still planning their weekend away? Or was this a final meeting to say goodbye? The sleek black car pulled up exactly 15 minutes later. James loaded her bag and opened the door for her. Where are we going? Raya asked as they pulled away from her building. The Blackwell estate, ma'am. Mr. Blackwell is waiting for you there. Raya's stomach tightened. The estate, Eleanor's domain. This didn't sound like the beginning of a romantic getaway. As they drove through the city and into the exclusive suburbs beyond, Raya tried to prepare herself for whatever might be coming. If Adrian had chosen his company, his family legacy, she would understand. How could she ask him to give up everything he'd worked for? The Blackwell estate was even more impressive up close than it had appeared in magazine photos. A sprawling mansion set on manicured grounds with a view of the distant mountains. James drove through iron gates and up a long driveway, stopping at the front entrance. "Mr. Blackwell asked that you be shown to the garden terrace, ma'am," James said, opening her door. A stern-faced housekeeper met her at the entrance and led her through the mansion's grand foyer, past rooms filled with antiques and artwork, and finally to a set of French doors that opened onto a stone terrace overlooking expansive gardens. Adrian was standing at the balustrade, looking out over the property. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and the relief on his face was immediate. "Raya," he said, crossing the terrace in quick strides to reach her. He took her hands in his. "Thank God you're here. Alexander came to see me," she said without preamble. "He told me what happened with the board." Adrian's expression darkened. "Of course he did. I should have known he'd go straight to you. Is it true? Have they really removed you as CEO? Temporarily. They think they have cause." Adrian's voice was tight with anger. "It's a power play. Alexander has been waiting for an opportunity like this for years. Because of me? Because of us? No." Adrian led her to a stone bench where they could sit. "You're just the convenient excuse. Alexander has always resented that our father chose me to run the company, even though he's older. He's been looking for a way to take control since the day I was appointed CEO. He tried to pay me to leave you," Raya said quietly. Adrian's face flushed with anger. "He did what?" "He came to my apartment, left a check." She hesitated. "He also said that Blackwell Industries cancelled its contracts with Premier Catering and other vendors." "I had nothing to do with that," Adrian said firmly. "That would have been Alexander's first move after the board vote. He's sending a message showing how quickly he can undo my relationships, my decisions." "What are you going to do?" Adrian took a deep breath. "Fight. I'm meeting with lawyers tomorrow to challenge the board's decision. I have allies too. Board members who stayed loyal, business partners who prefer dealing with me, shareholders who know the company does better under my leadership." "And us?" Raya asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "What about us?" Adrian's expression softened as he took her hands in his. "That's something I wanted to ask you about." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "This isn't how I planned to do this. I was going to wait until we were at the cabin, with the mountains around us and the stars above." Raya's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "I know it's fast," Adrian said, his voice gentle. "Too fast, probably, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He looked into her eyes. "Raya Fields, will you marry me?" Raya stared at the ring, at Adrian's hopeful face, unable to process what was happening. "Adrian, your family, the company, don't matter. Not like this. Not like you." He took her hand. "I love you, Raya. I think I started falling for you the moment you walked into that ballroom, looking so beautifully out of place. You showed me what I'd been missing. Honesty, genuine connection, someone who sees me for who I am, not what I can offer." Tears filled Raya's eyes. "I love you too, but this is so much to give up. Your family legacy is just that, a legacy, not a life sentence." Adrian squeezed her hand. "I can build something new, something ours." "Your mother will never accept this," Raya said, thinking of Eleanor's cold disapproval. "She might surprise us, but even if she doesn't, it's my life, my choice." Adrian smiled. "So, what do you say? Will you take a chance on us?" Before Raya could answer, the French doors flew open. Eleanor Blackwell stood there, her face a mask of fury. "What is going on here?" she demanded, her gaze moving from Adrian to Raya to the ring box between them. "Adrian Thomas Blackwell, have you lost your mind completely?" "Mother," Adrian said, standing but keeping hold of Raya's hand, "you're interrupting a private moment." "Private? In my home?" Eleanor's voice was ice. "Alexander told me you were meeting with the lawyers today, not this." She gestured dismissively toward Raya. "My meeting ended early, and yes, I invited Raya here because we have plans for the weekend." "Plans?" Eleanor's laugh was brittle. "While your position hangs by a thread, while Alexander dismantles everything you've built?" She turned her cold gaze on Raya. "Did he tell you what's at stake? The company your father gave his life for could slip from your hands. And you're here proposing to a woman you barely know. Adrian's jaw tightened. I know everything I need to know about Raya. And does she know everything about you? Eleanor asked. About the arrangements already in place? About what a merger with the Lancasters would mean for the future of Blackwell Industries? Mother, enough. Adrian's voice was steel, but Eleanor was relentless. Tell her, Adrian, tell her about the contract you signed 3 years ago. The one that guarantees Lancaster Shipping exclusive rights to Blackwell cargo if, and only if, you and Sophia marry. Raya felt as if the ground was shifting beneath her. She looked at Adrian. Is that true? His hesitation told her everything. It's a business arrangement, he finally said, one I never intended to follow through on. How your father negotiated that deal on his deathbed, Eleanor reminded him. It was his final wish for the company's security. And you and the Lancasters have used it to manipulate me ever since, Adrian shot back. He turned to Raya, his eyes pleading. It's just a piece of paper. It doesn't control my life. But it does control the company, Eleanor said. If you break that contract by marrying someone else, Lancaster Shipping will pull their business. Hundreds of jobs lost, millions in revenue gone overnight. Raya felt sick. This was so much bigger than just Adrian and his position. This affected countless lives, countless families. I should go, she said quietly, standing up. Raya, wait. Adrian grabbed her hand. Don't listen to her. We can figure this out. How? Raya asked, tears threatening. By destroying your family's company? By putting people out of work? I can't let you do that, not for me. Eleanor watched them with calculating eyes. Perhaps there's a solution that could satisfy everyone. Adrian turned to his mother warily. What are you suggesting? A test period, Eleanor said. 6 months. You return to your duties as CEO. Demonstrate your commitment to the company. Ms. Fields cannot wait. If after 6 months you still feel this way, we can revisit the Lancaster contract, see if there are alternatives. And in the meantime, Adrian asked, Raya and I just pretend we don't know each other. Not at all. You can continue your friendship. Discreetly. Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes. It's not an unreasonable request, given what's at stake. Adrian looked at his mother with disbelief. Discreetly? You want us to hide? To sneak around like we have something to be ashamed of? I want you to be practical, Eleanor replied coolly. 6 months is nothing. In the grand scheme of things, if your feelings are genuine, they'll survive. Raya stood silent, her mind racing. This was all too much, the proposal, the revelation about the Lancaster contract, the jobs at stake. She looked at Adrian, saw the conflict in his eyes. I need some air, she said quietly, turning toward the garden steps. Raya, please. Adrian started after her, but Eleanor caught his arm. Let her think, Adrian. This affects her too. For once, Eleanor was right. Raya needed space to process everything. She walked down the stone steps into the beautifully manicured garden, following a path between geometric flower beds and carefully pruned shrubs. Her thoughts were a storm. Adrian had proposed, had chosen her over everything. But at what cost? Hundreds of jobs? His family's legacy? Could she live with being the reason for all that loss? And yet, Eleanor's solution felt like a trap. 6 months of secrecy, of waiting, while Adrian was pulled back into his world of obligations and expectations. How long before Sophia or someone like her convinced him that his proposal had been a mistake? Lost in thought, Raya nearly collided with someone coming around a tall hedge. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see... She stopped short when she realized who it was. Alexander. Adrian's brother raised an eyebrow. Ms. Fields, I see you found your way to the estate after all. His gaze was calculating. Did you accept my offer? Or my brother's? Neither, Raya replied, lifting her chin. I haven't made any decisions yet. Wise, Alexander said with a thin smile, though I suspect my mother is working on a compromise as we speak. She always does. Why do you hate your brother so much? Raya asked bluntly. The question seemed to surprise him. Hate? I don't hate Adrian, I respect him. You took his company from him. Temporarily, Alexander corrected, and for his own good. Adrian is brilliant at what he does, but he's reckless with the personal side of his life. Always has been, because he doesn't follow your mother's plans. Alexander studied her curiously. You really don't understand any of this, do you? The Blackwell name carries weight, responsibility. Our decisions affect thousands of lives, millions of dollars. We don't have the luxury of following our hearts. It's on a whim. It's not a whim, Raya said quietly. Perhaps not, but it is a complication our company doesn't need right now. Alexander glanced toward the house. I should join Mother and Adrian. I imagine the negotiations are getting interesting. As he walked away, Raya sat on a stone bench, feeling overwhelmed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elliot. Are you still going to the mountains? Can I come visit you when you get back? The simple message, so removed from the drama unfolding around her, brought tears to her eyes. No matter what happened with Adrian, she had her own life, her own responsibilities. Elliot needed her. Her job, though currently in jeopardy, was important. Did she love Adrian? Yes. The realization settled in her heart, undeniable, but love wasn't always enough, not when so much was at stake. Raya stood and walked back toward the terrace. She could hear raised voices. Adrian and Alexander now locked in an argument while Eleanor tried to mediate. You had no right, Adrian was saying. Those vendors have worked with us for years. They were overcharging, Alexander replied coolly. I simply found more competitive options. This is my company. Adrian's voice was steel. Not anymore. Not for now. Alexander's tone was smug. The board made its decision, brother. Accept it gracefully. Raya hesitated at the bottom of the steps, not wanting to intrude on the family conflict. But Adrian spotted her and immediately broke away from the argument. Raya, he said, hurrying down to meet her, I'm sorry about all of this. She looked up at him, seeing the strain on his face, the worry in his eyes. Adrian, I can't be the reason your family falls apart. You're not, he insisted. This has been building for years. My brother, my mother, they've always wanted to control every aspect of my life. If it wasn't you, they'd find another reason. Eleanor and Alexander watched from the terrace, not even pretending not to listen. I think your mother's right about one thing, Raya said quietly. We need time. Adrian's face fell. You're not saying yes to the proposal. I'm not saying no either, Raya clarified. But this is too fast, too complicated. You need to sort things out with your company, with your family. And us? What happens to us while I'm sorting things out? Raya took his hands in hers. We take a step back. Not 6 months of sneaking around like your mother suggested, but maybe a few weeks apart. Time for both of us to think clearly. I don't need time to know how I feel about you, Adrian said stubbornly. But I do, Raya admitted. This is all happening so fast, Adrian. 3 weeks ago, I didn't even know you existed. Now I'm in the middle of a family business crisis, with paparazzi taking my picture and your brother offering me money to disappear. She squeezed his hands. I need to catch my breath. Adrian looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. Time. I can give you that. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the ring box again. But I want you to take this, not as an acceptance, just as a promise that my feelings won't change. Adrian, I can't, please. His eyes were intense, determined. Keep it safe for me, until you decide. Reluctantly, Raya took the box and slipped it into her purse. What will you do about the company? Fight for it. On my terms. Adrian cast a defiant look toward his brother and mother. I won't let them. Use you as leverage. Be careful, Raya warned. Alexander seems dangerous. He always has been. Adrian brushed a strand of hair from her face tenderly. Let me drive you home. Eleanor stepped forward. I think it would be better if James took Ms. Fields. I'm driving her, Adrian said firmly, leaving no room for argument. To Raya, he added more softly, one last drive before our break. The ride back to Raya's apartment was quiet, both of them lost in thought. When they arrived, Adrian walked her to her door. This isn't goodbye, he said, as if trying to convince himself as much as her. Just a pause. A pause, Raya agreed. She reached up and touched his face. "Sort things out with your company. I'll be here when you do." Adrian leaned down and kissed her, a kiss full of promise and regret and longing. When they parted, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you." Raya Fields, that won't change. Not in a few weeks, not in 6 months, not ever. After he left, Raya stood in her small apartment, feeling as if the past few weeks had been a dream. A beautiful, complicated dream that was now on pause. The ring box sat heavily in her purse. She took it out and opened it, gasping again at the stunning diamond that caught the light. It was beautiful but impossibly out of place in her simple life, just like Adrian himself. She closed the box and hid it in her dresser drawer beneath her winter sweaters. Safe. Waiting. Like her heart. 3 weeks passed. The longest 3 weeks of Raya's life. True to his word, Adrian had given her space. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. Just a single white rose delivered to her apartment every morning with no card attached. She knew it was from him. A silent reminder that he was waiting, that his feelings hadn't changed. Marco had managed to find Raya work with other catering companies to replace her lost income from the Blackwell contracts. She was grateful for the distraction, for the chance to focus on something other than the ring hidden in her dresser drawer and the man who had offered it to her. The media attention had gradually died down. Without new sightings of Raya and Adrian, together, the press had moved on to fresher scandals. Only occasionally would Raya spot her name in some gossip column, usually speculating about why she and Adrian hadn't been seen together. She hadn't told anyone about Adrian's proposal, not even her brother. It felt too private, too precious, to share, especially when she hadn't given her answer yet. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Raya was helping Elliot organize his book collection when there was a knock at his apartment door. "I'll get it," she said, setting aside the stack of mystery novels she'd been alphabetizing. When she opened the door, she was shocked to find Eleanor Blackwell standing in the hallway, looking as elegant and imposing as ever in a tailored grey suit. "Miss Fields," Eleanor said with a small nod. "May I come in?" Raya hesitated, then stepped aside. "Of course. This is my brother's apartment, though." "I'm aware." Eleanor entered, her assessing gaze taking in Elliot's small but tidy living space. "I did my research." "Who's that?" Elliot called from the living room. "A visitor," Raya replied, leading Eleanor into the main room. "Elliot, this is Mrs. Blackwell, Adrian's mother." Elliot looked up from his books, his face brightening with recognition. "Adrian's mom, the prince's mom." Eleanor raised an eyebrow at Raya, who explained, "Elliot thinks of Adrian as the prince from Cinderella because of how we met." "I see." Eleanor's expression softened slightly as she regarded Elliot. "It's nice to meet you, young man." "Are you here to take Raya to the castle?" Elliot asked excitedly. "Elliot," Raya said gently, "why don't you go organize your books in your room while I talk to Mrs. Blackwell?" Once Elliot had reluctantly retreated to his bedroom, Raya turned to Eleanor. "Why are you here?" "I wanted to see for myself," Eleanor replied, moving to the window that overlooked a small neighborhood park. "To understand." "Understand what?" "What my son sees in you." Eleanor's voice wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. "What could be worth risking everything he's worked for?" Raya crossed her arms. "And have you figured it out?" Eleanor turned to face her. "Not entirely, but I'm beginning to see glimpses." She gestured toward Elliot's room. "You take care of your brother. You work hard. You have integrity." "You say that like it surprises you." "It does somewhat." Eleanor sat down on Elliot's worn but clean sofa. "In my experience, when young women show interest in men of Adrian's position, their motivations are rarely pure." "I didn't even know who Adrian was when we met," Raya reminded her. "So you've said, and I'm inclined to believe you." Eleanor studied her carefully. "He proposed to you." It wasn't a question, but Raya answered anyway. "Yes." "And you didn't say yes." "I said I needed time." Eleanor nodded, as if confirming something to herself. "Wiser than I gave you credit for." She leaned forward slightly. "Do you love my son, Ms. Fields?" The direct question caught Raya off guard. Yes, I do. Enough to walk away from him? Raya stared at her. Is that why you're here, to ask me to let him go? I'm here to inform you of the current situation. Eleanor's voice was calm, controlled. In the 3 weeks since you last saw Adrian, things have deteriorated. Alexander has made several significant changes to company operations. Key clients are threatening to leave. The board is divided. I'm sorry to hear that, Raya said cautiously, but I don't see what it has to do with me. Adrian is fighting back. He's gathered support from major shareholders, from loyal executives. There's going to be a vote next week to reinstate him as CEO. That's good news, isn't it? It could be, Eleanor agreed. If he wins, but Alexander has one advantage, the Lancaster contract. If Adrian publicly breaks his commitment to Sophia, we lose our shipping partnership. The company loses millions. And you think my relationship with Adrian would cause him to break that commitment? Raya concluded. I know it would. Eleanor's gaze was steady. My son is many things, Miss Fields, but he's not a man who would marry one woman while loving another. Raya felt a strange mix of pride and pain at Eleanor's assessment. So, what are you asking me to do? Nothing underhanded, nothing deceitful. Eleanor reached into her handbag and removed a folder. I'm offering you an opportunity. Another bribe? Raya asked, remembering Alexander's envelope. No, a scholarship. Eleanor handed her the folder. To complete your library science degree, at any university of your choice, anywhere in the country. All expenses paid? Raya opened the folder skeptically. Inside were brochures for top library science programs, including several on the opposite coast. You want me to leave? She said, understanding dawning. To go far away. I want to give you the chance to fulfill your own dreams, Eleanor corrected, while giving Adrian the space to fulfill his responsibilities. By marrying Sophia. By saving his family's company. Eleanor stood. Miss Fields, I didn't come here to threaten or manipulate you. I came because, unlike my son Alexander, I believe in direct conversation. And honest bribery. Raya closed the folder. Call it what you will, but consider this. If Adrian loses the company because of his relationship with you, how long before he resents you for it? How long before the weight of what he sacrificed becomes too heavy for both of you? The question hit Raya hard, because she'd been asking herself the same thing. You don't know that would happen. I know my son. I know the weight of the Blackwell legacy. Eleanor moved toward the door. You have until the board vote next week to decide. The scholarship offer stands regardless of your choice about Adrian. After Eleanor left, Raya sat holding the folder, her mind racing. Was Adrian's mother right? Would he eventually resent giving up his birthright for her? Is the prince's mom gone? Elliot asked, emerging from his bedroom. Yes, she's gone. Raya managed a smile for her brother. Did she bring an invitation to the ball? Not exactly. Raya set the folder aside. Elliot, do you ever wonder what it would be like to live somewhere else? Maybe closer to the ocean? Elliot looked worried. Are we moving? No, just thinking. About possibilities. She squeezed his hand. Don't worry, nothing's changing right now. But everything was changing, whether Raya was ready or not. That evening, as she worked a catering shift at a downtown art gallery, Raya kept thinking about Eleanor's words, the weight of the Blackwell legacy, the possibility of resentment creeping into what was now pure love. She was arranging canapes on a silver tray when she felt someone watching her. Looking up, she froze. Adrian stood across the room, his eyes fixed on her, as if she were the only person in the crowded gallery. He looked different, tired perhaps, with a shadow of stubble on his jaw. But his eyes lit up when they met hers, and the smile that spread across his face made her heart race. Excuse me, she said to her co-worker, setting down the tray. I need a minute. She made her way across the room, weaving between art patrons, until she reached him. Adrian, she said, suddenly breathless. What are you doing here? Looking for you, he replied simply. I checked with all the catering companies in the city until I found where you were working tonight. That's thorough. I've missed you, Raya. His voice was low, intimate despite the crowded room. These 3 weeks have been hell. We agreed to take time, she reminded him, though her resolve weakened at the sight of him. I know, and I've respected that, but I needed to see you to tell you what's happening. He glanced around the busy gallery. Can we talk somewhere private? Raya checked her watch. My break is in 15 minutes. There's a small courtyard behind the gallery. I'll meet you there. For the next 15 minutes, Raya moved through her tasks in a daze, hyper-aware of Adrian's presence as he pretended to study artwork while really watching her. When her break finally came, she slipped out the back door to the small courtyard, where stone benches surrounded a simple fountain. Adrian was already waiting, pacing with nervous energy. When he saw her, he crossed the distance between them in a few quick strides. Your mother came to see me today, Raya said before he could speak. Adrian's expression darkened. What? Why? To offer me a scholarship, to study far away from here. Raya watched his reaction carefully. She also told me about the board vote next week. I was coming to tell you about that. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. Things at Blackwell Industries are complicated. Alexander has made some reckless decisions. We're losing clients. Good people are leaving the company. Because of me. Because of us. No, Adrian said firmly. Because Alexander is using the company to settle personal scores. He's dismantling everything our father built. And the board vote. Your mother seems to think you have a chance to get your position back. I do. I've been working night and day, calling in favors, gathering support. His eyes held hers intently. But I need to know something first, Raya. Where do we stand? The directness of the question caught her off guard. Adrian, I know. You asked for time. But I need to go into this vote with clarity. With certainty about what matters most to me. He took her hands in his. Do you still have the ring? Yes. Have you thought about my proposal? Every day, she admitted. Adrian's grip on her hands tightened. Raya, I love you. That hasn't changed. It won't change. But I need to know if you feel the same. If you're willing to take this leap with me, whatever comes next. What about the Lancaster contract? Raya asked. Your mother made it clear what would happen if you broke your commitment to Sophia. I've been working on that too, Adrian said. I found a way to restructure our shipping arrangements. It won't be easy, and we'll take a hit initially, but the company can survive without the Lancasters. And your mother, Alexander, the board, are all important, but not as important as you. Adrian cupped her face in his hands. These 3 weeks apart have only made me more certain. You're what I want, Raya. More than the company, more than the Blackwell legacy. Raya's heart raced. She had missed him so much, had thought of him constantly, but Eleanor's warning echoed in her mind. What if you regret it? What if someday you resent me for being the reason you lost everything? Is that what my mother told you? Adrian shook his head. Raya, I was losing myself long before I met you, drowning in expectations, in obligations, in a life planned out by everyone but me. His eyes were earnest, vulnerable. You didn't cost me anything. You showed me what was worth fighting for. Before she could respond, the back door opened and one of her co-workers called out, Raya, break's over. We need help with the champagne service. I have to go, she said reluctantly. Adrian nodded. When do you finish tonight? 9 o'clock. I'll wait. We can talk more then. He hesitated, then asked softly, Do you still love me, Raya? After everything? Looking into his eyes, Raya couldn't lie. Yes, I do. A smile spread across his face, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him tonight. Then that's all that matters. The rest we can figure out together. The remainder of Raya's shift passed in a blur. She moved through the crowded gallery, serving drinks and canapes, always aware of Adrian's presence as he lingered on the periphery, waiting patiently. At precisely 9 o'clock, she clocked out, changed from her catering uniform into her regular clothes, and found Adrian waiting by the back entrance. Come with me, he said, taking her hand. I want to show you something. He led her to his car and drove through the city, eventually turning onto a tree-lined street of elegant townhouses. Where are we going? Raya asked. Somewhere new, Adrian replied cryptically. He pulled up in front of a beautiful brick townhouse with large windows and a small front garden. Here we are. What is this place? Adrian turned to her, a mixture of nervousness and excitement in his eyes. It's mine, or it could be. I've put in an offer. You're moving out of your penthouse. I'm making changes. He got out and came around to open her door. Come see. Inside, the townhouse was empty but full of potential. Hardwood floors, tall ceilings, large rooms that caught the evening light. I thought the penthouse never felt like a home, Adrian explained as he showed her around. This could. It's closer. To downtown, near that park you mentioned Elliot likes, and... He hesitated, then added, there's a room that would be perfect for a small library. The implication was clear. He was planning a home with her in mind. It's beautiful, Raya said honestly, trying to imagine herself in this elegant space. But Adrian, can you really leave everything behind? Your family home? Your position? The company isn't everything, Raya. Whether I win the board vote or not, I've realized I want more from life than spreadsheets and shareholder meetings. He took her hands. I want a real home, a real life. With you, if you'll have me. The sincerity in his voice moved her deeply. What about your mother, Alexander? They'll always be family, complicated as they are, but I'm through letting them dictate my choices. Adrian's hands tightened around hers. So, Raya Fields, I'm asking again, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me, whatever that life looks like? Looking into his eyes, Raya knew her answer. The past 3 weeks had been empty without him. All her doubts, all her fears about their different worlds suddenly seemed less important than the man standing before her, offering his heart without reservation. Yes, she said, her voice clear and certain. Yes, I'll marry you. Joy spread across Adrian's face. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet in an embrace that spoke of relief, of homecoming, of future promise. I love you, he whispered against her hair. God, how I've missed you. The next morning, Raya woke in her own apartment, the events of the night before playing through her mind like a dream. Adrian had brought her home late, not wanting to leave but respecting that she had an early shift at a breakfast catering event. The ring was on her finger now, no longer hidden, in a drawer but sparkling in the morning light. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even Elliot. It still seemed unreal, like a fairy tale that might dissolve in the harsh light of day. Her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. Morning, beautiful. Good luck with your shift. Dinner tonight, I have... News about the board vote. She smiled, texting back a quick yes before heading to work. Throughout the morning, as she served coffee and pastries at a corporate breakfast, Raya kept her left hand carefully hidden, not ready to answer the questions the ring would surely bring. By lunchtime, her shift was over. As she walked to the bus stop, her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello? Ms. Fields? This is James, Mr. Blackwell's driver. Raya's heart skipped. Is everything all right? Is Adrian okay? Mr. Blackwell asked me to pick you up. He says it's urgent. I can be at your location in 10 minutes. What's happened? I'm afraid I don't have those details, ma'am, but Mr. Blackwell was quite insistent. Alarmed, Raya gave James her location and waited anxiously. When the familiar black car pulled up, she climbed in quickly. Where are we going, James? The Blackwell building, ma'am. Mr. Blackwell is meeting with the board right now. Raya's stomach tightened. The vote wasn't supposed to be until next week. I believe there have been some developments, ma'am. The drive to the Blackwell building downtown took 20 minutes. When they arrived, James escorted her through the imposing lobby to a private elevator. Mr. Blackwell said to take you directly to the boardroom, he explained, using a key card to access the top floor. The elevator opened onto a hushed executive level. A woman Raya assumed was Adrian's assistant stood waiting. Ms. Fields, she asked. I'm Diane, Mr. Blackwell's assistant. He asked me to bring you in immediately. What's happening? Raya asked, her anxiety growing. The board called an emergency session this morning, Diane explained as she led Raya down a carpeted hallway. Mr. Alexander Blackwell presented some concerning information. Mr. Adrian asked that you be brought here as soon as possible. They stopped outside a set of large wooden doors. Diane knocked softly, then opened one door just enough for Raya to slip through. Inside was a large conference room, with a massive table surrounded by serious-looking men and women in business attire. At one end sat Alexander, a smug expression on his thin face. At the other end stood Adrian, his back rigid with tension. Eleanor Blackwell sat midway down the table, her expression unreadable. All eyes turned to Raya as she entered. Adrian immediately crossed to her, taking her hand. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "I'm sorry to pull you away from work." "What's going on?" she whispered. Before Adrian could answer, Alexander spoke up. "Ah, the woman of the hour has arrived." His tone was mocking. "Please, Miss Fields, join us. We were just discussing your influence on our CEO." Adrian's jaw tightened. "That's enough, Alexander." An older man at the head of the table, clearly the chairman, cleared his throat. "Mr. Blackwell, perhaps you'd like to explain to Miss Fields why she's been asked to join this meeting?" Adrian turned to Raya, his expression grave. "Alexander has made some accusations about you, about us. He's claiming that our relationship has compromised my judgment, that I've made business decisions based on personal feelings." "That's ridiculous," Raya said, loud enough for the board to hear. "Adrian has always put the company first." "Has he?" Alexander stood, holding up a folder. "Then perhaps you can explain these." He removed several photographs and spread them on the table. Raya moved closer to see. The photos showed her and Adrian at various moments over the past months, at the fundraiser, entering his apartment building in the park. Most seemed innocent enough, but one caught her eye. It showed Adrian handing an envelope to Marco at the Premier Catering offices. "What are these supposed to prove?" she asked. "That my brother has been prioritizing your interests over the company's," Alexander replied smoothly. "That envelope contains a personal check to your employer after the company properly terminated its contract with them." Adrian's expression was thunderous. "I was correcting your vindictive action. You cancelled those contracts to punish Raya, not because they weren't valuable partners. So you admit to overriding a company decision for personal reasons." Alexander pressed. "I admit to rectifying a mistake," Adrian shot back. The chairman raised a hand. "Gentlemen, please." He turned to Raya. "Ms. Fields, we've asked you here because these allegations concern you directly. Mr. Alexander Blackwell has suggested that your relationship with Adrian has led to questionable business decisions that have harmed the company." "That's not true," Raya said firmly, finding her voice. "Since I met Adrian, he's talked constantly about his responsibility to the company, to the employees who depend on him. He even—" she hesitated, then continued, "he even agreed to a separation so he could focus on the company issues. And yet—" "Here you are again," Alexander noted. "With his ring on your finger, I see." All eyes moved to Raya's left hand where the diamond caught the light. She resisted the urge to hide it. "Yes," she said, lifting her chin. "Adrian proposed and I accepted, but that doesn't mean he's forgotten his responsibilities." Adrian squeezed her hand gratefully. "The board should know," he said, addressing the room, "that I've spent the past 3 weeks developing an alternative to the Lancaster shipping contract. The proposal is in front of you now. It would allow us to maintain our distribution channels without being dependent on a single partner. At significantly higher cost," Alexander pointed out. "Initially," Adrian conceded, "but with greater flexibility and security long-term." One of the board members, a woman with silver hair, studied the documents in front of her. "This proposal is actually quite sound. It diversifies our risk, which has been a concern of mine for some time. The question remains," the chairman said, "whether personal feelings have clouded Mr. Blackwell's judgment." To everyone's surprise, Eleanor Blackwell stood up. "If I may address the board." When the chairman nodded, she continued, "I've known my son Adrian his entire life. I've watched him take over this company after his father's death and lead it through challenging times. He has always put Blackwell Industries first." Raya stared at Eleanor in shock. Was she actually defending them? "The issue at hand," Eleanor continued, "is not whether Adrian loves Miss Fields. He clearly does." Her gaze moved briefly to Raya. Not unkind, but assessing. "The question is whether that love has compromised his business acumen, and to that I can only offer my observation." She turned to face the board members directly. "I have spent time with Ms. Fields. I have seen how she influences my son, and contrary to my initial concerns, I believe she has actually improved his judgment, not clouded it. Alexander's face contorted with disbelief. Mother, you can't be serious. The Lancaster contract has been a sword hanging over this company's head for too long, Eleanor interrupted. Your father never intended it to be used as leverage to force Adrian into a loveless marriage. He wanted security for the company, yes, but not at the cost of his son's happiness. The boardroom fell silent. Adrian looked as stunned as Raya felt. Mrs. Blackwell, the chairman said finally, are you supporting Adrian's reinstatement as CEO? Eleanor said firmly. And I am supporting his right to marry whomever he chooses without it affecting his position in this company. Alexander stood. This is absurd. She's bewitched both of you. Sit down, Alexander, Eleanor said sharply. You've done enough damage. The chairman cleared his throat. I believe we've heard enough to move forward with a vote. He looked around the table. All those in favor of reinstating Adrian Blackwell as CEO of Blackwell Industries, effective immediately? Hands rose around the table. First the silver-haired woman, then several others, until a clear majority was visible. The chairman nodded. The motion passes. Adrian Blackwell is reinstated as CEO. Alexander's face flushed with anger. He gathered his papers and strode toward the door, pausing only to hiss at Raya. This isn't over. After he left, the chairman stood. Congratulations, Mr. Blackwell. The board looks forward to reviewing your alternative shipping proposal in detail at our next regular meeting. He glanced at Raya. And congratulations on your engagement as well. As the board members filed out, Adrian turned to Raya, his eyes shining with emotion. I can't believe that just happened. Eleanor approached them, her posture still regal, but something softer in her expression. Neither can I, to be honest. Mother, Adrian said, his voice thick with feeling. Thank you, I never expected... Yes, well? Eleanor straightened her jacket. I've had 3 weeks to reconsider my position. She looked at Raya directly. When you didn't immediately accept Adrian's proposal, when you insisted on time to think, despite what must have been a tempting offer, it showed character. It showed love, Adrian corrected, taking Raya's hand. Real love, not just what was convenient or advantageous. Eleanor nodded slightly. Perhaps. She turned to go, then paused. The scholarship offer still stands, Miss Fields. Not to separate you from my son, but because education is important, even for a future Blackwell. After she left, Adrian pulled Raya into his arms. I'm sorry you got dragged into this corporate drama. I'm not, Raya said, looking up at him. Now I understand what I'm signing up for. She smiled. The good and the complicated. Adrian laughed. Mostly complicated, I'm afraid. His expression grew serious. Alexander won't give up easily. He's wanted control of the company for years. We'll deal with him together, Raya said, surprising herself with her confidence. I may not know much about corporate politics, but I know about standing up for what matters. Adrian's face softened with love. Have I told you today how amazing you are? He kissed her gently, then added, and how beautiful you look wearing my ring. Raya glanced down at the diamond sparkling on her finger. It still doesn't feel real. It's real, Adrian assured her. All of it. He guided her toward the door. Come on, let's get out of here. I have a CEO's office to reclaim, and then I'm taking the rest of the day off to celebrate with my fiancée. Outside the Blackwell building, photographers had somehow gotten wind of the board vote and were waiting. Flashbulbs exploded as Adrian and Raya emerged. Mr. Blackwell, is it true you've been reinstated as CEO? Raya, is that an engagement ring? Adrian, when's the wedding? Adrian squeezed Raya's hand reassuringly. Instead of hurrying past as they had at previous encounters with the press, he stopped and faced the reporters. Yes, I've been reinstated. As CEO of Blackwell Industries, he announced, his voice clear and confident. And yes, Raya and I are engaged. He looked down at her with such love that Raya felt her heart might burst. That's all the statement we have for now. We'd appreciate some privacy as we celebrate. As James brought the car around, Adrian shielded Raya from the cameras. Once they were safely inside, he turned to her with an apologetic smile. I'm afraid this is part of the package too. The attention, the scrutiny. I'm learning to live with it, Raya said. As long as we're together, the rest is just noise. Adrian smiled at her use of his own words. Where to, Miss Fields? The whole day is ours. First, Raya said, I want to tell Elliot our news. He's been asking when the prince was going to rescue Cinderella. Adrian laughed. I think it was the other way around. You rescued me. They spent the afternoon with Elliot, who was overjoyed at the news and immediately began asking if they could have the wedding at the library where he worked. Adrian promised to consider it, treating Elliot's suggestions with the same seriousness he would give a board member's proposal. Later, they visited the townhouse Adrian was buying, this time with Raya truly seeing it as their future home. They walked from room to room, planning where furniture would go, which room would be Elliot's when he visited, where the promised library would be located. It's perfect, Raya said as they stood in the living room watching the sun set through the large windows. But are you sure you won't miss your penthouse, your family estate? I'll miss some things, Adrian admitted. But I'm gaining so much more. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her head. Home isn't a place, Raya. It's a feeling. And I feel at home when I'm with you. That evening, Adrian took Raya to Giuseppe's, the small Italian restaurant where they'd had their first real date. The elderly owner greeted them with joyful hugs when he spotted the engagement ring. I knew it, he exclaimed, patting Adrian's cheek proudly. The way you looked at her that first night, just like your father looked at your mother in the early days. Adrian's expression turned wistful. I wish he could have met Raya. He sees, Giuseppe said with certainty. He knows his son has found love, real love. Over pasta and wine, Adrian and Raya talked about their future, the wedding they wanted, small and intimate, where they would live, the townhouse once the purchase was complete, how to integrate their very different lives. I still want to finish my degree, Raya said. Maybe I'll take your mother up on that scholarship after all. Whatever you want, Adrian assured her. Your dreams matter just as much as mine. As they were finishing dessert, Adrian's phone buzzed with a text. His expression turned serious. As he read it, What is it? Raya asked. Alexander, Adrian said grimly. He's called a press conference for tomorrow morning. About what? It doesn't say, but knowing my brother, he's not giving up without a fight. Adrian set down his phone. I'm sorry. I hoped we'd have more time to celebrate before the next crisis. Hey, Raya reached across the table to take his hand. Remember what you said? We'll handle it together, whatever it is. The next morning, Raya accompanied Adrian to the Blackwell building, where Alexander's press conference was set to take place on the steps outside. A crowd had already gathered, reporters, photographers, curious onlookers. You don't have to do this, Adrian told her as they approached. Alexander can be vicious when he feels cornered. I'm not hiding, Raya said firmly. Whatever he says, we face it together. They arrived just as Alexander took his position at the microphones. He looked surprised to see them, but quickly recovered, a calculating smile spreading across his face. Perfect timing, he said into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, yesterday the board of Blackwell Industries made the unfortunate decision to reinstate my brother as CEO, a decision I believe they will soon regret. He held up a folder, similar to the one he'd presented, to the board. I have here evidence of numerous instances where Adrian Blackwell has made decisions based not on business acumen, but on personal feelings, particularly regarding his relationship with Ms. Raya Fields. Cameras turned toward Raya and Adrian. She held her head high, refusing to be intimidated. My brother has allowed himself to be influenced by a woman who until recently was serving canapes at our events, Alexander continued. A woman with no business experience, no social standing, no... That's enough, Alexander. The firm voice came not from Adrian but from Eleanor Blackwell, who had appeared at the top of the steps. Mother, Alexander said, clearly thrown off balance. This doesn't concern you. It concerns the Blackwell name, which makes it very much my business. Eleanor descended the steps with regal grace until she stood beside Adrian and Raya. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I'd like to make a statement. The reporters turned their attention to Eleanor. sensing a better story developing. Blackwell Industries was founded by my late husband with a simple philosophy: integrity in business and in life. He believed that how we conduct ourselves matters as much as the profits we generate. Eleanor's voice carried clearly across the gathered crowd. My son Adrian has honored that philosophy, even when it was difficult, even when it meant standing up to his own family. Alexander's face flushed with anger. Mother, you can't... I'm not finished, Alexander. Eleanor's tone brooked no argument. As for Ms. Fields, whom my older son seems determined to malign, she has shown more integrity in the short time I've known her than many who have moved in our circles for decades. Eleanor turned to face Raya and Adrian directly. Blackwell Industries will be fortunate to have her as part of our family. The press erupted with questions. Cameras flashed, but Eleanor raised a hand for quiet. One more thing, she said. Effective immediately, Alexander Blackwell is no longer associated with the company in any capacity. The board voted on this as, well, though my son seems to have omitted that from his statement. Alexander's face contorted with rage. You can't do this. This company is my birthright too. A birthright you forfeited when you put personal vendettas above the company's well-being, Eleanor replied coldly. Your father would be disappointed, Alexander, not in who your brother chose to love, but in how far you were willing to go to destroy him for it. With that final statement, Eleanor turned and walked back up the steps, leaving Alexander sputtering at the microphones while reporters shouted questions. Adrian squeezed Raya's hand. That, he said, with something like awe, was unexpected. Your mother is full of surprises, Raya agreed, watching Eleanor's retreating figure with newfound respect. Mr. Blackwell, a reporter pushed forward. Does this mean the wedding is officially on? When's the big day? Adrian looked at Raya, a question in his eyes. She nodded, and he turned back to the reporter with a smile. Yes, the wedding is definitely on. As for the date, we'll let you know. But first we have a home to finish and a library to build. 6 months later, on a perfect autumn afternoon, Raya stood in a small dressing room at the back of the city's grand old public library. The historic building had been closed to the public for the day, transformed with simple white flowers and twinkling lights into an elegant wedding venue. You look beautiful, Elliot said, his eyes wide as he took in Raya's elegant but simple white gown. Thank you, she replied, straightening his bow tie. You look very handsome yourself. There was a soft knock at the door, and Eleanor entered, looking elegant in a silver-blue dress. It's almost time, she said. The guests are seated. She paused, taking in Raya's appearance. You make a lovely bride. Thank you, Raya said, still getting used to the warmer relationship that had gradually developed between them over the past months. Eleanor hesitated, then added, Adrian asked me to give you this. She handed Raya a small velvet box. It belonged to his grandmother. Inside was a delicate diamond bracelet that matched her engagement ring perfectly. It's tradition, Eleanor explained. Something borrowed. As Raya fastened it around her wrist, Eleanor surprised her by adjusting it gently, almost maternally. I know I wasn't welcoming when you first came into Adrian's life, but I want you to know I've come to see what he saw from the beginning. And what's that? Raya asked softly. A woman of grace, integrity, and genuine love. Eleanor's usual composure cracked slightly. My son is a fortunate man. Before Raya could respond, the wedding coordinator appeared at the door. We're ready when you are. Raya took a deep breath. Let's go. The ceremony was everything she had dreamed. Intimate, meaningful, filled with love. Adrian's face when he saw her walking down the aisle between bookcases would stay in her heart forever. Elliot proudly carried the rings. Giuseppe sat in the front row, dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. And when they exchanged vows among the books they both loved, surrounded by only their closest friends and family, Raya knew that her life had changed forever. Not because she had married a wealthy man, but because she had found a partner who saw her completely and loved her exactly as she was. At the small reception afterward, held in the library's grand reading room, Adrian pulled Raya aside for a quiet moment. Happy? He asked, his arms around her waist. More than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly. Even with all the complications that come with being a Blackwell, he teased. Even with your mother's weekly teas and the board meetings, I somehow got roped into attending, Raya confirmed with a laugh. Though I still don't understand half of what's discussed. You understand more than you think, Adrian said. The board members are already asking when you'll finish your degree and join the Blackwell Foundation. They're impressed with your ideas for community libraries. One step at a time, Raya said. First, I want to enjoy being your wife. Mrs. Blackwell, he murmured, savoring the sound. Though I think I'll always remember you as the woman without a name tag who walked into the wrong room at exactly the right moment. The best mistake I ever made, Raya agreed, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. Nearby, Elliot was entertaining a group of Adrian's business associates with his encyclopedic knowledge of mystery novels. Eleanor was deep in conversation with Marco, who had catered the reception and whose business was now thriving thanks to its association with the Blackwell romance, as the press had dubbed it. Looking around at this unlikely gathering, people from such different worlds now connected through her and Adrian, Raya felt a profound sense of rightness. What are you thinking? Adrian asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. That fairy tales don't always look like we expect, she replied. Sometimes the castle is a townhouse with a library. Sometimes the wicked stepmother turns out to be complicated, rather than evil. And sometimes, Adrian prompted. Sometimes the magic isn't in glass slippers or pumpkin carriages, Raya finished, looking up at the man who had changed her life. Sometimes it's just in being seen, really seen, by someone who could have looked past you, but chose to look deeper instead. Adrian's eyes softened with love. I saw you from the first moment, Raya, and I'll keep seeing you every day for the rest of our lives. As they rejoined their guests, Raya carried that promise in her heart. Whatever challenges came their way, and there would be many, they would face them together, two people from different worlds who had created something new and beautiful between them, a real-life fairy tale, complete with a happy ending that was actually just the beginning. The end.